My name is Nur Aimanti Abdullah. My metric number 285555. Now I will start the presentation with the fact of the case. Manfredo is a student and social activist that was forcibly taken by the Honduran military on September 12, 1981. The Honduran government was notorious for human rights abuses, including enforced disappearance to silent political opposition. Despite the numerous attempts to locate him, his whereabouts remain unknown, and the climate in Honduras during this period was marked by fear and repression, with arbitrary detention, torture, and extrajudicial killings. Next is the Family and Human Rights Organization took the case to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which is referred it to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. The case was among the first to address enforced disappearance within the jurisdiction of the Inter-American Court, setting a precedent for future cases. The trial presented extensive evidence demonstrating the systematic nature of human rights abuses and the state's role in this action.
The case of Velázquez Rodriguez v. Honduras, decided by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, is one of the most significant cases in the court's history. Here's a detailed explanation of the issues involved. First is disappearance and murder. The central issue of the case was the disappearance and subsequent murder of Manfredo Velázquez Rodriguez, a university professor in Honduras. Velázquez Rodriguez was a prominent figure critical of the Honduran government's policies. The second one is allegations of state involvement. There were strong allegations that Velázquez Rodriguez was abducted and killed by Honduran security forces due to his political activism and criticism of the government. This raised concerns about state-sponsored human rights violations and the rule of law in Honduras. Next is failure to investigate. Another key issue was the failure of the Honduran authorities to conduct a prompt, thorough, and impartial investigation into Velázquez Rodriguez's disappearance and murder. This failure suggested a lack of accountability and a culture of impunity within the Honduran state apparatus. Next, denial of justice. Velázquez Rodriguez's family and human rights advocates argued that the Honduran government failure to investigate and prosecute those responsible for his disappearance and murder amounted to a denial of justice. This denial of justice extended not only to Velázquez Rodriguez's family but also to the broader Honduran society. Also include violation of human rights. The case raised broader questions about the violation of fundamental human rights in Honduras, including the rights to life, liberty, and due process. It highlighted the vulnerability of activists and dissenters in the country and the need for stronger protection for human rights defenders. The last one is state responsibility. The case also addressed the issue of state responsibility for human rights violations. It questioned the extent to which the Honduran government was accountable for the actions of its security forces and whether it had fulfilled its duty to protect its citizens' rights. Thank you.
In this case, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights made several holdings, some of which include state responsibility. The court held that the state of Honduras was responsible for the violation of numerous rights protected under the American Convention on Human Rights, including the right to life, human treatment, personal liberty, and judicial protection. Second, duty to investigate. The court emphasized the obligation of states to investigate human rights violations effectively, impartially, and with due diligence. This includes identifying those responsible, punishing them, appropriately and providing reparation to the victims. Obligation to prevent torture and inhuman treatment. The court highlights the duty of states to prevent torture and inhuman treatment not only through legislative measures but also through effective enforcement. Lastly, right to judicial protection. The court affirms the right of individuals to have access to justice and to seek remedies for human rights violations before competent judicial authorities. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights ruled that states have a duty to prevent, investigate, and punish human rights violations. The court emphasized that these obligations are not merely discretionary but are binding under international law. The case also highlights the importance of holding states accountable for violations committed by state agents or groups acting with state consent. Furthermore, it underscored the right of victims to obtain justice for the harm they suffer. Overall, the holding of the case reinforced the fundamental principles of human rights protection and the rule of law in the Americas.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Afika binti Ahmad Jamili and my mention number is 286 and 844. I will explain about the rationale of the holdings. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which is IACHR, established several key principles in the Velasquez-Rodriguez v. Honduras case. First, for the state responsibility, the court held that Honduras was responsible for the disappearance of Manfredo Velasquez-Rodriguez. This is because the state has an obligation to protect its citizens and uphold their fundamental rights. For the duty to investigate, the court determined that Honduras failed to adequately investigate the disappearance. A state has a duty to conduct a prompt, impartial, and effective investigation into alleged human rights violations. This includes gathering evidence and identifying those responsible and holding them accountable. Alright, next rationale is obligation to prevent torture and inhuman treatment, which is the court recognized that enforced disappearance constitute torture and inhuman treatment. Honduras, by failing to prevent the disappearance and not conducting a proper investigation, violated its obligation under the American Convention on Human Rights to protect individuals from such acts. Alright, next I will talk about the right to judicial protection. The court found that Honduras domestic remedies were ineffective in addressing the disappearance. The right to judicial protection requires a state to have a functional legal system that provides access to justice for victims of human rights violations. Here, the Honduras system failed to deliver it. So the solution here is this holdings by the IACHR set a precedent for future cases involving enforced disappearances and state responsibility for human rights abuses. The court emphasized the importance of states taking proactive measures to prevent such violations, conducting thorough investigations, and ensuring access to effective judicial remedies. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you so much.
In the conclusion, this case is a significant international human rights law ruling highlighting the responsibility of states for human rights violation. The court found Honduras responsible for the enforced disappearance of Manfredo Velasquez Rodriguez, highlight the importance of circumstantial evidence and testimonies. The case has influenced international human rights jurisprudence and emphasized the state duty to investigate, prosecute, and punish those responsible for human rights violations. That's all from our group. Thank you.